просим разобраться в данной ситуации. Нам был дан приказ командиром роты.
It started with a whisper in the dead of night. A message sent over a secure line. Coordinates. Exact locations of Russia's most secret armored storage facilities. Tanks, hidden deep in the countryside, far from the front lines. For months, Moscow believed these stockpiles were invisible. But someone inside was about to prove them wrong. The tip-off came from an unlikely source: Russian soldiers themselves. Frustrated. Angry. Disillusioned. They had watched friends die for a war they no longer believed in. They had been lied to about the mission. And now, they were ready to strike back. Not with bullets, but with betrayal. They sent the intel to Ukraine. Inside Kiev's military command, the information was electric. Satellite images were pulled up. Drone feeds confirmed the targets. Dozens of tanks, concealed under camouflaged netting. Old Soviet models, refurbished and ready for deployment. And newer machines, meant to reinforce Russia's struggling front lines. All vulnerable. For Ukraine's military planners, this was the jackpot. A chance to cripple Russia's reinforcements before they ever reached battle. The order went out to prepare a strike. Precision missiles were loaded. Drones were armed for follow-up attacks. Every move had to be timed perfectly. Because once they hit, there'd be no going back. On the Russian side, the guards at these storage depots had no idea what was coming. It was just another quiet night in the middle of nowhere. The tanks sat silent, engines cold. The soldiers smoked, chatted, and waited for their shift to end. They didn't notice the faint hum in the sky. They didn't see the drones circling above. Until it was far too late. The first explosion tore through the darkness. A missile slammed into the largest storage hangar. The blast ripped the roof apart, sending fireballs into the night. Seconds later, a chain reaction began. Fuel stores ignited. Tanks exploded like dominoes. The quiet countryside became a war zone. In the chaos, Russian soldiers scrambled for cover. Some tried to fight back, firing at the incoming drones. But the drones were too fast, too high. They dropped more munitions, targeting the remaining vehicles. Within minutes, what had been a hidden arsenal was reduced to burning wreckage. Dozens of tanks destroyed without ever firing a shot. The strike was a total success. Back in Moscow, the news hit like a thunderclap. The Kremlin had kept these tank reserves secret even from most of its own military. How had Ukraine found them? Theories swirled. Was it Western intelligence? Was it a leak? The truth that Russian soldiers themselves had given the coordinates was unthinkable. Inside Putin's inner circle, suspicion spread like wildfire. Everyone was a potential traitor. Commanders were interrogated. Phones were seized. Loyalty oaths were demanded. The mood turned toxic. Trust, once broken, could not be repaired. For the Russian soldiers who had betrayed the locations, there was no turning back. They knew their names would eventually surface. Some had already fled. Others stayed behind, blending into the chaos, hoping to disappear. But each of them knew the risk. Betraying Putin's war machine was a death sentence. Still, they had done it willingly. In Kiev, the operation was hailed as one of the most effective strikes of the year. It wasn't just the destruction of tanks. It was the psychological blow to the Kremlin. If Russian troops were willing to sell out their own equipment, what else might they reveal? Morale on the Ukrainian side soared. They had proof that cracks were forming in the Russian war effort. And those cracks were growing. For Putin, the betrayal was personal. He had built his image on strength, loyalty, and fear. Now, even his own soldiers were defying him. It sent a dangerous message, one that could inspire more defections. Security forces doubled their efforts to root out dissent. But paranoia only fed more resentment. And resentment led to more leaks. Military analysts warned that this could be a turning point. Not because of the tanks themselves, Russia had more. But because of what the strike represented. If internal betrayal continued, Russia's war machine could unravel from within. And no amount of propaganda could stop it. The world watched closely. This was more than a battle. The Kremlin tried to downplay the incident. State media claimed the explosions were accidental. They blamed faulty ammunition storage. They didn't mention Ukraine. They didn't mention drones. And they certainly didn't mention betrayal. But on social media, the truth spread fast. Videos of the burning tanks flooded the internet. Ukrainian officials posted satellite before and after images. Independent analysts confirmed the coordinates matched known Russian facilities. There was no hiding it anymore. The damage was undeniable. And so was the fact that someone inside Russia had helped make it happen. The cover-up had failed. As the war dragged on, more such betrayals emerged. Artillery positions exposed. Supply lines revealed. Even troop movements leaked in real time. Each act chipped away at Putin's control. And each act emboldened Ukraine's counterattacks. The tide was slowly, painfully shifting. For the Russian soldiers who tipped off Ukraine, there was no glory. No public recognition. Only the quiet knowledge that they had struck a blow against a war they despised. They risked everything, their careers, their families, their lives. But they believed it was worth it. Because in their eyes, stopping the war was worth more than any loyalty to Moscow. Even if it meant death.